Welcome back, brothers and sisters. I am Braden. This is Langley Outdoors Academy, and thank you for stopping by. All right, guys, it's been a while since we've been able to debunk a CNN hyper-partisan propaganda piece, but one has struck through, and we are going to cover it in depth right now. Now, CNN had a special out about a month ago about basically gun control and an extreme hyper-partisan view on the Second Amendment called The Price of Freedom. And as soon as I get a copy of it, we're going to dismantle it piece by piece, and I cannot wait. But right now, they're doing a hype piece for it, and they're airing it tonight, which I'm going to get my hands on, hopefully. But listen to what they did, because this is a manipulation propaganda piece at its finest. But as the article goes down, they buried how they completely dismantled their own points. And this is crucial. We're going to hit each one of them, because this is something that you guys need to know, be aware to speak to when this comes up, because 2022 is coming, and that's why they're freaking out. But enough of that. It's linked in the description box below. Let me know what you guys think. And if you're new, we hope we earn that subscription so you can join the fight with us. But let's dive in. So, the spike in gun violence continues, with 2021 on pace to be the worst year in decades. Okay, so that sets up that we're in a terrible position. It's never been worse. This is incredibly bad. Well, they didn't mention that the last time it was this bad was under the Clinton administration. Yeah, they didn't say that because they can't, because that would incriminate them. But let's continue. So far, 2021 is on pace to be the worst year for gun violence in decades, surpassing even the high levels last year. So right there, they're making the insinuation that this year is the worst it's ever been. It's not, and they don't tell you where it's coming from, and that's the important piece. Here's the debunking number one. CNN and GVA, which is Gun Violence Archive, define a mass shooting as an incident with 4 or more people killed or wounded by gunfire, excluding the shooting. Now keep that definition in mind, because Gun Violence Archive is what the gun controllers, the media love to go to, and there's tons of other sources that are more fair and more realistic and a little bit more scientific than Gun Violence Archive. Because all they do is they notice how many people have been shot and they mark it. They don't count it out because of gang violence. They don't categorize it. They don't do anything. Gang violence, drug deals, criminal activity, house parties, domestic violence, they don't do anything. They only say this happened and therefore we have a problem, and they apply it to the whole population, which is not legit, all right? But let's dive in and let's check out what they're actually referencing here. Tell me if this passes your sniff test, okay? According to the Gun Violence Archive, from January 1 to September 15th, so that's this year alone, a total of 14,516 people have died from gun violence in the U.S. That's 1,300 more than during the same period in 2020, a 9% increase. Mass shootings are also on the rise. Through September 15th, there have been 498 mass shootings across the U.S., or an average about 1.92 a day. That's 15% higher than last year, when there was a total of 611, a rate of 1.67 per day, according to the data from the GVA. Now, just quick sniff test. Do you guys remember the media covering 498 mass shootings? Or do you really remember titles like gun violence uptick in Chicago, gun violence up in New York? Which one of those do you remember? Because I'm pretty sure that the mainstream media never misses an opportunity to paint the Second Amendment in a negative light. And I'm pretty sure, again, if there were 498 mass shootings, that we would have heard about them. So why would they only state the outcome, but they wouldn't state the circumstance? Because they're hiding the circumstance, because it's known criminal elements that are causing it. But they don't want to tell you that. But let's keep going. This is where they start to refute their own point, I think on accident. The rapid rise in gun violence, however, might be slowing down. Well, the front of the article says the worst time in decades. So why didn't you lead with, but it's slowing down? Because it gets clicks. That's why. Richard Rosenfeld, a criminology professor at the University of Missouri St. Louis, and his colleagues found that in the first quarter of 2021, the number of homicides was 23% higher in 2020. In the second quarter, the number went down 10%. So you didn't feel like a 13% drop was important to note at all. No, you didn't. You just wanted to say the whole overall outcome, right? I see what you're doing. I see what you guys are doing. Rosenfeld told CNN that many factors could be playing a role in the rise of gun violence, including the pandemic, as well as racial strife spurred by the murder of George Floyd last year, and the effect both have had on policing across the U.S. Now keep in mind, policing. They're about to refute their point even further. Listen to this. Immediately after George Floyd was murdered and widespread protests broke out across the country, Rosenfeld said, that's what we saw in the number of cities, a very, very large uptick in homicides. Rosenfeld said that the pattern is similar to what happened in the wake of the shooting of Michael Brown in 2014 by a police officer in Ferguson, Missouri. So 2 separate instances with the same outcome of reducing police presence led to an uptick in crime and gun violence. Interesting observation. What we're seeing now is exactly what we saw 7 years after the Ferguson incident and protest emerged across the country, said Rosenfeld. We saw a sizable uptick in homicide in the big cities, and the uptick persisted, depending on the city, for a year, sometimes a little more than a year. That sounds exactly like what you're describing, but you took it as gun violence is breaking records. You didn't mention the fact that there's two correlating events that both led to a reduction in police forces, which then led to an uptick in big cities that are gun controlled and an increase in homicide and gun violence. Didn't feel like that was important, CNN? Just saying. That's the whole point. This entire thing, the gun control narrative, is a bunch of manipulation across the board. The people that are doing the violence are not being policed and being held accountable, but they're still quoting the gun violence archive as this terrible situation that we're in. The key to an honest conversation is having an honest conversation. That's a good place to start. And that's what I've got for you guys tonight. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and I will see you tomorrow morning on the Bullet Points. I'm Braden, signing out.